How much does it cost to study abroad in Japan? I've been in Japan for almost 4 years now, and wow, how time has flown. When I first came to Japan, I studied for a year and a half on a student visa at a Japanese language school. I made a video about this experience, and if you haven't seen it yet, you can check it out here. One of the most asked topics about this video was, you guessed it, money. I received a lot of questions about finances, like, what did your costs look like? Outside of school, what were your monthly expenses? How much did you roughly spend in Japan? Since I know a lot of people are looking to come to Japan on this student visa route, I'm making this video to address all of these money questions and more. I'll go through a detailed breakdown of the costs associated with studying and living abroad, touch on working a part-time job as a student, and share some general cost-saving tips. So sit back, grab your notebook, and let's talk money! To address the big question about how much does it cost to live abroad in Japan, I'll be sharing some real numbers and prices about school and living expenses. Keep in mind that how much it costs will depend on each individual scenario. School tuition varies institution to institution, and cost of living differs from region to region. Also, lifestyle differences will make an impact as well. So let's dive into the costs associated with studying abroad in Japan. The main expenses I'm going to cover include costs for school, housing, commute, food and drink, leisure and fun, and miscellaneous. So let's start with the big stuff. School expenses. This includes registration fees, course fees, and material fees. For most schools, this information should be readily available on the homepage. If not, I suggest reaching out to the school to inquire for an estimate. According to the 2024 price list for the school I went to called Genki Jacks, they have a one-year school tuition fee of 1,120,000 yen. This includes material fees like textbooks and handouts. You can check out the price list for yourself online. Note that these prices are for 2024 and are likely to change moving forward. Compared to when I attended in 2021, these schooling costs have already increased 13%. So for school expenses, we have a total of 1,120,000 yen, which in today's conversion rate is about 8,000 US dollars. Check the pricing for the schools you are interested in, and be sure to know all expenses including registration, application, course, and material fees. Up next is housing. You are going to go to school and study Japanese, but where are you going to live? Easily for me, the school I went to provided accommodation services, so they helped me find housing during the time of my studies. The school charged a one-time accommodation fee for handling the research and doing the main contractual items. The listed price for this service in 2024 is 20,000 yen. Depending on the type of housing that you live in, the monthly costs and living conditions will vary. Options include living with a host family and doing a homestay, staying in a share house, or living in a private apartment. Living with the host family, you get a private bedroom and a home shared with a family. This means you'll most likely get more opportunities to practice Japanese outside of school, be able to integrate with a new community, and have a sense of family while living in a new country. Breakfast and dinner are also included. In some cases, homestays can be located further away from the central areas, which can add to transportation costs and commute time. You can't pick and choose your homestay family, and there might be certain rules and family etiquette that can take getting used to. The weekly price for staying with a family in Fukuoka as of 2024 is 25,000 yen, compared to 35,000 yen in Tokyo and 30,000 yen in Kyoto. Share houses offer a different experience than homestays, as you live in a building with other residents. You have your own bedroom, but share public spaces like lounges, kitchens, and bathrooms with others. Share houses are generally more cost-friendly than living in a private residence and allow for more social interaction, if that is your thing. Experiences can be positive or negative depending on fellow residents and the degree of privacy you are comfortable with. Weekly pricing decreases with longer contracts. For a one-year contract, the weekly price is 12,000 yen or 624,000 yen a year. Meals are not included, so you'll have to cover eating expenses on your own, whether that means eating out, making your own meals, or a combination of both. The next type of living is a private apartment. Here you'll have the privacy of your own space, but the costs may be much higher. Note that the size of a studio apartment in Japan can also be quite small. My apartment was considered a standard studio size at 21 square meters. The room came furnished with an AC unit, a single bed, and a desk. There is also a small cooking stove and a shower and toilet. Internet, utility fees, and weekday breakfasts and dinners were also included. Not all places are as convenient and inclusive as what I had, so I consider myself pretty lucky. Again, the prices for private accommodation depend on the region, but in Fukuoka, for a one-year contract, Genki's 2024 price is listed at 32,000 yen per week or 1,664,000 yen a year. When I studied, I opted to do a homestay for 3 months and a private apartment for the rest of my time. I checked the prices for how much I paid during the time that I studied, which was during COVID and a little bit over 3 years ago, but I was really surprised to see that the accommodation costs have increased around 85%, which is a lot. So compared to a few years ago, costs for studying abroad in Japan have increased quite a bit. What about finding housing yourself? Of course, you can also opt for finding your own housing, but there can be some challenges with this, especially on a student visa. For example, it can be difficult to make housing contracts without a longer-term visa or a job in Japan. Additionally, standard housing contracts require various upfront fees including key money, insurance, cleaning fees, and deposits that can equal multiple months of rent. Also, unless you're getting a furnished apartment, you'll have to purchase standard items like curtains, lights, furniture, and appliances, since these aren't traditionally included in apartment rentals, which I learned for myself the hard way. But if you are able to get your own place, the monthly cost will likely be much cheaper than going through school housing. In Fukuoka, you can get a nice private apartment from 40,000 to 60,000 yen a month, which is less than half the price of school-placed housing. Some other house-related fees to think about are utility fees. Depending on your situation, you may need to pay for extra fees such as internet, water, gas, and electricity. Luckily, when I stayed at a private apartment during school, all of these were already covered in the housing cost. For a student who lives in Fukuoka and uses the school-placed housing and lives in a private apartment, they can expect to pay around 1,664,000 yen or around 12,000 US dollars a year for housing. Next up is school commute. So another potentially big expense can come from your school commute. Depending on where you live, transportation costs can vary and add up quickly. When I lived with a host family, I took a 20-minute train ride each day that was 280 yen each way. This adds up to 560 yen per day or 2,800 yen per week for a 5-day school commute. Once I moved to an apartment which was closer to school, I could walk either 40 minutes for free, bike 15 minutes, or take the bus and walk for about 200 yen each way. If you don't own a bike, you can look into bike share services like Fukuoka's Chari Chari bikes, which charge 7 yen per minute. If you decide to purchase or can get a second-hand bike, this can be a very cost-effective way for school commute in addition to walking. How much you pay for transportation will depend on where you live, but can range from 0 yen to over 145,600 yen a year or about 1,000 US dollars. The next section is food and drink, which includes eating out and buying groceries. It's hard to estimate costs here because everything depends on the eating and buying habits of the individual and can also change depending on the living situation in the case that certain meals are already provided in the housing cost. As rough estimates, in Fukuoka, you can get a decent lunch outside from 500 to 1,000 yen. This includes simple bentos, lunch set, a bowl of ramen, or a few items from the conveni. Dinners will tend to cost a bit more. On the lower end would be about 1,000 yen for a single item from a restaurant. Expect to pay from 3,000 yen if you go to an izakaya or order more items at a restaurant. And if you dine somewhere more fancy, like at a yakiniku restaurant or a course meal place, expect to pay 5,000 yen or more. If you're planning to cook for yourself, don't be surprised if the groceries are not exactly cheap either. I won't calculate theoretical meals, but some basic costs of items include a pack of 10 eggs for 300 yen, 2 chicken thighs for 600 yen, a container of yogurt for 200 yen, and 2 kilograms of rice for 1,500 yen. If you're someone like me who also likes cafes and bars, then those drinks will add up too. You can expect a general tea, coffee, or beer to cost around 600 yen each. If you eat out for lunch and dinner every day with a mix of lower and middle cost meals and visit a cafe once a week, this could cost you around 889,200 yen per year or about $6,200. The next expense to account for is leisure and fun. Of course, you're coming to Japan to learn the language, but what better way to solidify your learning than to go out into the real world, meet people, and experience Japan? Leisure and fun activities range from relatively free, like hiking, attending events, going to the beach, seeing fireworks, to moderately priced, like going to a concert or doing a craft experience, to more expensive, like going on an overnight or longer trip. There are lots of activities that you can do around Fukuoka and Kyushu. For example, hiking Mount Tachibana Yama, going to Momochi or Atago Beach, going to an onsen, biking in Itoshima, going to a seafood market in Shimonoseki, exploring Yanagawa, experiencing traditional crafts in Yame, and visiting Zamami Island in Okinawa. If you want to learn more about these activities, you can check them out on my blog. And if you're wondering what the heck is Fukuoka and why does Mercy keep talking about this place, then you might want to check out my book too. This is a new book that I've created, which is a photo book and visual introduction to the Kyushu region. In the pages, you'll see just how beautiful the area is and why it might be worth making Kyushu your study home as well. Back to our main topic about living abroad in Japan, just know that costs for travel and leisure will vary greatly, so keep that in mind as you budget for your trip. Finally, there are several miscellaneous expenses that I'd like to cover as well. You might need to purchase daily essentials such as a futon or mattress, sheets, and a pillow. Nitori sells a basic set of these items for 9,900 yen. You'll also need to consider the cost of buying consumable items like shampoo, conditioner, body wash, sunscreen, and toothpaste. If you plan to cook for yourself, you'll also need things like a frying pan, spatula, condiments, dishware, and utensils. There are also expenses relating to having a cell phone plan, travel insurance, and health insurance. These costs can add up to at least $1,000 a year. So we've talked about expenses and have gone over the main categories of school, housing, commute, food and drink, leisure and fun, and miscellaneous expenses. So how much does it cost to study abroad in Japan? For an example student in Fukuoka who lives in their own apartment, takes the train to school every day, eats out modestly for their meals, goes to a cafe once a week, buys the basic daily essentials, their cost estimate would be around $28,000 US. And this does not include extra spending for leisure and fun and other purchases. You can see here that the main expenses for living abroad in Japan come from school and housing. And these expenses will vary greatly depending on what school you choose, which region you live in, and what kind of housing you ultimately end up staying in. Phew! We have talked a lot about the money that you will spend, but what about money you can make? Can you have a part-time job as a student in Japan? The next part of this video, we are going to be talking briefly about part-time jobs as a student in Japan. While studies should be the main focus of your time abroad, you can generally work no more than 28 hours a week on a student visa. The rules are much more nuanced than this, so you should check that out with your school and online, but that is the rough idea. Having a part-time job is generally not recommended until you reach a higher level of Japanese and are accustomed to the school schedule of living life abroad. If you start missing classes due to having a job, you will get in trouble with your school and may have issues with your visa. In order to work, you need to obtain permission from immigration and report your work to the school so they can make sure you are following the rules. The amount you make depends on the job and your skills, but for general shift positions that pay minimum wage, you can expect around 1,000 to 1,500 yen an hour. For reference, the minimum wages across the country that will go into effect starting October 2024 are as follows. Fukuoka 992 yen, Tokyo 1,163 yen, and Osaka 1,114 yen per hour. So if you work the maximum amount of 28 hours a week, which is generally not encouraged, at 12,000 yen per hour, you can make 1,747,200 yen, or about $12,000 a year. So yes, you are allowed to work a part-time job while on a student visa as long as you get permission, stay within the rules, and it doesn't affect your studies. However, without a higher level of Japanese, opportunities and wages will be pretty limited. Finally, the last section that we are going to talk about is saving money. Here are some ways to reduce costs and save money as a student in Japan. Commuter discounts. If you have a set commute each day, you can usually apply for a commuter pass that offers some sort of discount or all-you-can-ride benefits within a specific route. Student discounts. Many places offer discounts for students like at museums, sightseeing spots, restaurants, and bars. Keep your student ID on you to claim these perks. Buy used items. If you're only going to be in Japan for a short amount of time, do you really need a new desk, a new chair, a new dresser? Maybe not. Unless you have long-term plans to be in Japan after graduating, I suggest embracing a minimal lifestyle. Secondhand shops are very popular in Japan and have a surprisingly large amount of high-quality items that can be found much cheaper than new ones. Join local Facebook groups. There are always people moving in and out, especially in early spring, so you can find great deals for home items listed on pages like these. Sometimes people even give things away for free. Ask other students at your school. Students who are graduating and moving back to their home countries may be looking for easy ways to get rid of their items. It's a great way to keep things out of landfill and reduce your costs too. Shop at the dollar store. Dollar stores like Daiso and Syria are great places for getting simple items cheaply. Many times I can find the same item at a dollar store for much cheaper than at a normal store. And that about wraps up this video. I hope that this overview was able to give you a clearer idea of the costs associated with studying abroad in Japan. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and if you found this video helpful, please give it a like so that it can be recommended to other people. If you haven't already, follow my channel and Instagram to stay up to date with daily life and updates in Japan. Good luck on your studies and Japan adventure! Mata ne!